Moving on. So everyone, if you've been enjoying this content, if you liked what we've done so far, right?
Wait, can I offer something real quick?
Or just we don't have any time. We don't have any time. Moving on. But you can throw it in like in your opening statement. For the next topic.
That's all right.
So yeah, if you've been enjoying this content, hit that follow button right now. If you're new to this channel, hit that follow button right now. Make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live with this all the time. If you like what we're doing here, we do more of it. X page for social in chat for our social media. We got plenty of that too. We do Twitter, where we let you know what's going on. Discord, where all our conversations happen, right? So jump into our Discord. We'd love to have you. And then TikTok, we can find amazing videos from this channel, and YouTube is where you find the VODs. So like, comment, subscribe, consider becoming a YouTube member, hitting that join button, and supporting us that way. If you enjoy getting that content 7 nights a week, okay. So I'm going to move on to our next topic. Amazon's smart doorbell company, Ring, has provided surveillance footage to law enforcement without a warrant or the consent of doorbell owners 11 times this year alone, according to a letter Amazon sent to Congress earlier this month. This has garnered criticism from privacy activists. But should that be the case? The law allows for these instances, and the terms of services of these types of products generally allows the company to use the footage in limited circumstances without the owner's consent. Furthermore, the footage released could actually be useful in solving crimes in an emergency. So should customers be outraged by Amazon working with law enforcement? Should people boycott its services? Or should they embrace the possibility for safer communities? Okay, yeah. So there was I forget which politician did it, but there's a politician in our U.S. Congress who sent a letter to Amazon asking for this information. And the response was yes, just 11 times this year, warrantless requests were fulfilled to law enforcement. And yeah, people are pretty excited about it. But I think there's an interesting conversation about like the balance between, security and freedom and, like the rights that you kind of give up when you take these corporate products. So we'll start from my man Wood, please.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Like, this isn't just something that's done randomly or at a whim. It's for people who have agreed to have this product installed. Now, they may have not understood what they were agreeing to. It may not be in the EULA or end user license agreement. If so, that needs to change immediately. But as I understand it, it kind of is. They are upfront about it. It's just buried in that thing that no one reads when they agreed to install these things. So yeah, this is something you can opt out of. You don't have to have this product in your home. So I think that there is no inherent harm, right? And someone who does want that kind of extra security or safety agreeing to have this installed, like for some that's a feature, not a bug. For some that's a feature that they want this in their home so that if an emergency does happen, that the police and other authorities can have access to this to help solve their issue. I do not see that as a downside. Now, if this was happening across the board, if this was something citywide or mandated, 100% against it. But it's not. It really isn't in this case. So that's my stance.
Okay, great. And guys, let's keep our opening short. You were fine, Wick, but just keep our opening short so we can get to the and KO8, please.
Well, I'm just gonna keep my opening piffy here in that who the fuck told any of you it was a good idea to hook up cameras that were hooked up to the internet all over your house? Who told you that was a fucking good idea? Some of y'all motherfuckers never read 1984 in high school, and it fucking shows. Like, oh my god, like, yeah, obviously it should, in theory, be all private, but no, the state's going to use whatever it can, whenever it can. There is no door that a warrant cannot open. That is the pretty basic legal principle, and so if you've got footage that they have, they're going to fucking try and get it from you, however they're going to try to fucking get it from you. Should they? No. Is it unfortunate that just like in 1984, people are in their homes installing their own telescreens all over their own fucking house to let people know, And yes, obviously, if it's hooked up to the fucking internet, it's obviously going to be taken not just from the state, but from malicious actors otherwise. So again, I'm just going to say, who the f told you that was a good idea? Put fucking cameras hooked up to the internet all over your house. And with that, I yield.
Bro.
So this isn't about cameras all over the house. This is about a doorbell camera. And you know what? If hackers want to watch me walk around with what God gave me, then they can feel free to do so. But no, I think that Amazon should have to have a warrant to give this stuff out. There's the quote unquote that they're upfront with it, and the way they're upfront with it is they bury it in legal paperwork and hope you never read it. So no, I think that Amazon would have to have your consent. In which, if a crime did happen, I would give my consent for Amazon to use my doorbell. But I think that they should require the consent, or they should require a warrant.
Thank you. Let's go to Corey.
Yeah, so I echo many of the same things that Wick brought up in terms of like, you know, if in fact it's in the end user license agreement or in the terms of service or whatever, and they're agreeing to it, then like, you know, well, you get what you signed up for. But so at the end of the day, I think this also poses some other interesting questions that I'm going to attempt to bring up later on, where like, so I have mixed feelings and thoughts about this and I'm not sure I have a firm position, but you know, the sentiment of like privacy at all costs, I tend to be kind of against that when it comes to other circumstances that I will attempt to bring up later on, especially when it comes to, you know, without getting too far down into the weeds of what do we do in terms of like child sexual abuse images and, you know, phone, etc., privacy, all that stuff. But in this instance, it seems like the users are agreeing to it. And so it's like there's nothing really going wrong as far as I can tell.
Thank you. Okay. Aiko?
Yeah, I'm going to be interested when it gets to Scott, because I'm curious as to whether or not Scott considers privacy to be a positive right or a negative right, because I think you could go either way on that, and I'm sort of curious about that. But as I understand these cases to be, there are two instances in which these things happened without the consent of the owner of the doorbell, and that is subpoenas and emergency requests. And so the 11, I'm guessing, are emergency requests, since it said that they didn't have warrants. So I think that that's a problem, and I think that's a problem that needs to get fixed one way or another. We've got to maybe even change the terms of service to acknowledge the rights of the owner of the doorbell. However, I'm largely agree with David Brin, who talks about privacy issues a lot as a thing of as an outdated issue. He basically argues that privacy is over. Like we can fight it as much as we want, but we're not going to win that battle. For most of us, we don't have privacy. He argues that what we should do instead is make sure that the rich and powerful don't have exclusive rights to privacy. In other words, rather than demanding privacy that we'll never, ever be able to achieve, we instead should be fighting for universal transparency of information, so that government has to be transparent and the rich and powerful and the corporations have to be transparent, because getting that old privacy back that we used to have, it's just not in the cards. Like, we've gone far beyond that. Technology has gotten so far on that we can't do it. And just in response to KOE, I don't think this is 1984, because in 1984 all of this was imposed like directly and obviously. I think this is Brave New World, where we're doing this to ourselves, right? That the idea that everything is a choice is actually sort of boxing us into a world that we don't really choose. It just gives us the illusion of choice.
There's an article that talks about that transparency?
Well, I can tell you, David Brin, he's a famous sort of science fiction author. He's won a lot of Hugo Awards and Nebula Awards and stuff. And he makes that argument, not necessarily in a book. He makes that argument in his own sort of social media posts a lot. He posts on all the normal places, Facebook and Twitter and things like that. Okay. But this is just an argument that David Brin makes about privacy. But I can try to look up maybe an article that he's written or something like that and try to post it in chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote The Postman, I believe, right? Is that correct?
Yes, he did. Yeah. And he wrote like a series of books about called the Uplift series, which is about like, you know, different animals being given intelligence.
Sure. But that sounds like an interesting argument. All right, thank you so much. Let's
Sure.
go to
Yeah, I'll go find it.
oh my God. Let's go to LSP. LSP, please.
Yeah, I mean, I look at privacy as a pretty fundamental right. Law enforcement, as far as I'm concerned, if ever there's a reason to violate your privacy, they can get a fucking warrant for it. As for like when corporations hand over or break your right to privacy to hand over information to law enforcement, you know, on your behalf, the only two circumstances where I could see this being a thing is one, when you're doing something like super illegal and it's in law enforcement's best interest to know, or two, it's when something's happening to you that might be super illegal or your life might be in danger and it's in law enforcement's best interest to know. I would hope that the companies which, you know, they have such an intimate relationship with my life would understand and respect my privacy in much the same way I would expect the government to. There are certain boundaries you don't cross, and the few times you can cross it, these are very limited circumstances. Get a fucking warrant. Unless you're like the corporation, in which case I guess you're not bound by a warrant, but like, I don't know, maybe we need to update our laws.
Scott.
Yeah, so I'm hearing references to 1984. I'm hearing references to Brave New World. Shut up and take your soma. But what I'm not hearing references to, which I just find kind of funny, is like Citizen 4. Like, did nobody watch that? Like, is nobody aware of like what Edward Snowden did? And like no one went to jail. Like the idea that you think that the NSA doesn't already have all of this ring footage like backed up somewhere anyways, to me is kind of funny, right? Like the state already has all of this. You willingly put a fucking camera on your porch. Now, in terms of like contract and like is Amazon like in trouble for this? Like it takes no time whatsoever to recognize that this isn't an unconscionable contract. It's written in very clear language, not buried, by the way. Like it's in the first quarter of the terms of service under section recordings, content, and remission from you. Section D, that like if there's imminent threat or that there is some form of danger, as these 11 cases said, that they'll willingly give this information over to the authorities. You signed that agreement. It's not buried. It took me like 30 seconds of just control F police, control F shared, control F data, and like looking around and being like, oh, there it is. Like you're allowed to share all, like they're going to share this even without a warrant under these specific circumstances. You have 11 times that this was done out of 1.4 million users. I'd have to look at the 11 individual cases, but I'm willing to bet that these 11 individual cases probably met like a legal definition of that contract. It's not written in like confusing legalese. It's very, very clear. Like if you're literate, you can read it and understand what's going on there. So, I mean, I would say that the state already has all of this shit. They'll steal it and take it whenever the fuck they want. There's a reason I don't have one. And there's a reason I don't have a fucking Echo in my house. And there's a reason when I go to bed at night, I fucking move my webcam camera like fucking up so that you can't see what the fuck I'm doing. Because they're hacked into all your shit and it's not a crazy conspiracy theory. Just fucking watch fucking Citizen 4. If you haven't watched it and then you watch that and then you realize nobody went to prison and multiple people that lied to Congress now work for CNN, then you'll realize that it's a fucking moot point that you're fighting here. You don't have privacy. The government has already stolen that. So yeah, like in terms of contract, I think it's a pretty solid contract and you should read your fucking agreements if you're going to agree to put cameras into a cloud-based system managed by private corporations. I think it's probably a good thing. The real issue here is not Amazon. It's not the contract. It's not whether or not the contract is unconscionable or permission. The real issue here and the real reason we're scared is because the state has a monopoly on power and violence and police.
Oh, bingo.
And the police fucking suck. Okay, I don't know who you bingoed. You didn't tell us about it, but
there's like an ANCAP bingo card, buddy.
Oh, okay. Roger. Yeah. Like it almost might,
opening statement.
It almost might be like I promulgate my fucking ideas during my opening statement because I believe in them. But yeah, like the real issue, the real reason we're terrified of this, the real reason that we're scared of this is because we know that the police abuse their authority regularly and harm us, and that the state does the same, and we don't trust that institution. And so looking to Amazon as the problem here is really just kind of like It doesn't work. You agreed to it, and you're not addressing the real problem, which is the police.
Thank you so much. Doobie, please.
Basically everything Scott said, but minus the government sole your freedom thing or your privacy thing. I think it's totally fine for the government to have access to this. I think it's so long as they're using it to protect the public, catch potential threats, the terrorists, pedophiles, whatever the fuck it is, murder suspects. Like this reminds me of the 23andMe case where like people were really upset. Hey, if you give your fucking DNA to 23andMe, the government might get their hands on it. Well, sure, who cares? Like they've sealed or they've solved multiple cold cases through 23andMe, right? Like this, it seems like this is working to our benefit. I really don't have an issue with it.
Open to the panel.
Look, I see. So you're the one that brought up the book of like no privacy, all transparency, right?
Right.
Okay. So how transparent do you want the public to be? Like exactly, give me a limit to where maybe we don't need to be transparent anymore with the government.
Well, I think
should we all be able to see each other fuck or like?
Wait one second.
Well, how about if you're Jewish or homosexual? Like maybe that's not the government.
Let him answer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, listen. If some people have privacy and others don't, this is the argument that Bryn makes. If only the wealthy and powerful and connected and the government and corporations and stuff like that are able to hide the shit they do, but 98% of society doesn't have that same right, then you have this big sort of differential in power. And all he's saying is that he's saying what Scott said, which is that there's no getting that power back from the government. They have it, they can get the data anytime they want, and there's just no getting that back. What he's saying
there is getting that back. So I might agree that I might agree we're not getting rid of the FISA court, but there is getting that back, as in keeping private companies accountable for not intruding the privacy of a customer. And so that would be very simple. And the idea that like the public should be completely It's actually is fairly easy, but companies don't give information to police officers unless they're given warrants, or given consent by the owner of whatever this is.
To ask you directly, Sprout, is signing an EULA or a terms of service consent in this case? Yes or no?
When it's hidden underneath so much, no, stop. Yes, it is. When it's hidden, this just came out not too long ago. This came out 7/12/2022 is when the article was written. It's happened prior to this. It's happened 11 times this year, according to the article. So if you want to play this game, you can play this game. This has just become public that Ring has started giving out information to the authorities. Now, with this being said, it either remains public. It either remains private. Or we need to keep these companies accountable for intruding privacy of the people that they support.
But again, they consented to it. I'll argue that the 11 times is not the problem. The time is the count. The problem is the countless times where they get that information because people aren't reading their.
Let's go to Wick and then Corey.
Yeah. So the issue here, it comes into education and consent. And yes, that there's predatory practices where they're burying it, and we could have a conversation on how EULAs oftentimes do obscure and buries very pertinent information that the customer should need to know. That's a conversation we can have. But when we look at this specific case with the Amazon Ring, I do not think it meets that standard. And again, I think there's a value in having if this is something you want, right, to be able to opt in, like Amazon Ring owners are, to be able to opt in and say, yes, I want my information shared if I'm in imminent danger, if there's an imminent threat, if there's something going on. This is one of the selling points of the product to me.
Yeah.
So you're okay with private citizens? You're okay with private citizens losing their right to privacy because we obviously have a right to privacy.
Well, have you heard of the Apple lockdown protocol?
Okay, yeah, so,
it's protecting just government officials and high-level elites. So it's exactly the thing that you want to avoid, and we're already implementing it.
So yeah, Sprouticus, based off what you said, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like, you seem to be of this sentiment of like privacy at all costs, as in like you'd be sort of in favor of like currently Facebook sort of like scans images and messages, along with, Google does that as well. And there's reasons for that. Like so you don't want that occurring.
If they scan images or anything like that, that's fine, but it shouldn't be given to the government. That's an invasion of privacy when you give it to it.
Okay, well, it's being...
If it's for an internal source, something else that Google does, right? Like Google scans my pictures looking for my face. That way I've got a nice little neat picture, neat little folder with the pictures of me in it. That's fine. But when they hand it off to a third party, I disagree with it because I think it's an invasion of privacy.
I just want to finish my point, because I asked that question for a reason, because that is currently happening, as in the context of like child sexual abuse. Facebook, it's mandatory for them to report it. They scan it, they report it, and here's where I think the interesting contrast is, as in 2020, Facebook reported 20 million instances of child sexual abuse imagery to the appropriate authorities because they have to by law.
How many of those were acted upon?
Sorry.
How many of those were acted upon? How many of those did the FBI? Because that's who Facebook reports this shit to. How much these images did the FBI act upon?
Yeah, well, obviously not 20 million because the resources aren't there. But also, this is contrasted with, when it comes at privacy at all costs, So Facebook, 20 million in 2020. Apple, less than 300 because of, they don't do any scanning whatsoever. And if you look into obviously what any sort of child abuse period, it is horrific. But
see, Corey,
there is a human cost associated with that. Just this privacy at all costs.
Corey, I guess it's not privacy at all costs, but what I am for is privacy of the citizen. So it's something as simple as taking, and so at all costs is what I'm having a little bit of an issue with. I see, since you want to throw your hands up and pretend like I'm spouting off some nonsense. I guess it's not at all costs.
We're all citizens.
Okay. This is awesome. I guess it's not at all costs, but I do think that the privacy of the citizen should be maintained at a very high cost, and it shouldn't just be freely given to third parties without the consent or knowledge of the owner of whatever happened. So I guess not at all costs, but when it comes down to it, you're gonna need something pretty fucking bad to be able to report without consent of what's going on.
Spartacus, I agree.
So that mandatory reporting.
If I may,
I agree, Spartacus. The problem is that you said, well, it's simple to fix this, and the fact of the matter is who's gone to jail at Verizon? Who's gone to jail at Sprint? Who's gone to jail at Comcast? Who's gone to jail at who's gone to jail at Google? All of these people specifically allowed the state to have backdoor access into their systems to give
the government
freely give information.
Fabian, I gotta interrupt you there because the state has had backdoors. DARPA's had backdoors since the 90s. We just this is the way it is.
You're making a tangential
pretty much every fucking piece of tech you got since the Internet of Things was all built upon that.
Phil Kelly, you're getting into the weeds. What I'm saying is that you said that how much. Trust me, just follow me through on this. What you're saying is that this is a simple thing, and yet we already have proof and evidence that the National Security Administration, along with several other members of the intelligence community, along with the 5 Eyes or 12 Eyes or 13 Eyes community, that all of these people already have direct access to every email you send, to probably at this point every text message you've ever sent. They can put trigger words on you. We already know that the parents, right, that dared to protest what's occurring in schools, that the Attorney General has special terrorist FBI designations to track all of their communications, and they openly report that if you're against, let's say, diversity, equity, inclusion, or CRT in school, and you go to school board meetings and you protest it, that you get put on lists and the FBI tracks.
No, that's not what they said.
Now, if I may,
can I please?
But no, Fabian. Like I'm saying, this is a well-known fact, folks. Fabian, you had plenty of time to filibuster there. But And my name's Phil, goddammit. I should do the filibustering. But anyways, I'm going to say, like, no, Fabian, we've had this back door in pretty much all online tech since the 90s. Folks can look it up. DARPA's had this back door in pretty much the Internet of Things that we've built all of our commerce and communications on. So whether we like it or not, yes, that back door has already existed whether we like it or not. Now, I just wanted to pose one question to the general panel, but also to you, Fabian, in particular. Because, like, when it comes to the terms of service, always look up your terms. Well, how far does that extend? Like, if you just click agree because you're just kind of like, fuck it, like, can Apple actually come like the South Park episode and, like, turn you into human centipede or some shit just because you didn't, like, how far does that actually extend? Do you think that's actually valid?
It's really simple, right? You just follow English common law under unconscionability, duress, undue influence, right? You get into legalese about contract law and what is and isn't a valid contract, and it's very clear that this is clearly stated and that this isn't like against your direct interests and that this isn't like particularly harmful to the majority of people. And so you're not signing up for something that is like absurd in some degree. It's it's an easy language that anybody could read, and it's not buried like in the middle. It's actually under its own subsection that's clearly titled, etc. And so this is not an unconscionable contract. But what you're talking about, extreme cases, or for example, where unconscionability went to the Supreme Court. I can't remember the case off the top of my head, but you had a Latino individual that was reading a contract that lawyers couldn't even interpret, and he was about like extreme amounts of interest on a payday loan, and they said, yeah, this is an unconscionable contract. No one that understood this would reasonably agree to this. She didn't understand what she was signing up for, and you'd have to be a lawyer to interpret this. These are two different things. So it's perfectly fine contract, but there are lines, right? And English common law has, contract law is kind of a foundation of that, and yeah. You'd have to take him to court and determine that.
You thought no, we live by the divine right of terms of service contracts.
No,
I was wondering if there was
making an appeal to common law.
Let's go to LSP, Benwick.
I just want to point out a bit of fake news from Fabian earlier, and that's
fake news.
Fake news. The FBI is not investigating you for protesting parents at critical race area or anything like that. The FBI was investigating death threats made to school staff.
Yeah, it's not like saying it's fake news doesn't just magically make it fake news. When the attorney general, when the attorney general specifically, responds to the letter from teachers unions, and there are cases in there like the Loudoun County school case is cited as like a reason for violence.
That very same letter.
And we have several. We have more than one whistleblower that has brought information to, I think it was Republicans in Congress, about specifically saying that there were designated texts. Now, is that hardcore proof? No. I mean, we just have a whistleblower in government documents saying that they're doing this.
Okay, that same letter you're citing right now, the Attorney General outright said like the right of protest needs to be respected, and they're specifically looking for the people making the death threats.
Yeah,
cool.
I don't know anything about this specific letter.
I'll just send you a PolitiFact article on it, and then Phil's gonna complain. That
so I cannot comment on
fact
that.
Check,
I want to just to tackle.
No, I'm just gonna say thank God Merrick Garland never made it to the Supreme Court.
That's another subject. But back on the subject of the day when it comes to ELU, terms of service and things like that, that I think Fabian is right here. There's a level of absurdity that obviously we wouldn't tolerate. But when it comes to things like this specific case with Amazon Ring, I don't think this is necessarily out of line. And again, in fact, we buy security systems in our homes all the time with the express understanding that, yes, the data from that's going to be turned over to the law enforcement agencies. That's kind of built into the cake. And that's what we want out of security system when we buy it. We want the police to be called if there's a break-in. We want the data that it gathers to be sent to help with prosecution. We want all these things. It's
whoa. That's not disrespecting our privacy, though.
Neither is Amazon Ring.
Stop. If a neighbor decides to break into your house if your neighbor sees someone breaking into your house and your neighbor calls the cops like, hey, someo's breaking in my neighbor's house.
What do you think?
So your neighbor is now violating the
we can cut this off at the head. What do you think? What right to privacy was violated in these instances, in your opinion?
In my opinion, there was no consent given for that video to go out. There was no understanding that specific video was going out, and there was no warrant for that exact video. This was Amazon deciding by itself that it was going to give that to the government. The privacy is a negative right. The government is going against the negative right to privacy, and so with that being said, the government needs to protect our right to privacy, and they need to start enforcing our right to privacy.
Does Amazon have the right to watch us fuck if there happens to be a camera in our bedroom? I'm curious. Can they be allowed to watch you fuck? That's a real question. I'm not being a bit hyperbolic. I'm curious to anybody. Should Amazon be allowed to watch you fuck
if you buy a camera that's the title the "Watch Us Fuck in Our Bedroom" camera?
That's not what I'm asking.
Install it right.
I'm going to ask.
Then yes, they have that right because you've consented to it.
So okay. So you think Amazon should even be? So you think they should even be able to watch you fuck? Even if you just happen to have a camera pointing at your house.
You said they can when you clicked OK to the fucking EOLA or whatever the fuck it's called. Then yeah, they can watch you fuck.
Now, folks, is that the kind of world that y'all want to live in?
I guess just the world that I'm advocating for is a world in which you need to be an adult and read shit that you sign. Like, I don't understand why this is so crazy.
It's not crazy. It literally says you also acknowledge and agree that Ring may access, use, preserve, and or disclose your content to law enforcement.
What page is that on? What page is that on?
Et cetera. It's not a page. It's under the section recordings, content, and permission.
How far down is that?
Yeah, it's literally
like it's about one quarter.
Let's say this,
and then Section D says, right? Section D. It gives 4 sections. Section D says protect the rights, property, or safety of the Ring, its users, a third party, or the public, as required or permitted by law. You gave them that right. It's very clear language.
Let's say we're like on page 300 of 1000, right? And it was like in very fine text, right? Even if that were the case, you buy a product, you understand that you're connecting to a service, and with that comes a ton of terms and conditions. If you're not taking the time to read through that, you don't have the time or the interest to do it, then don't fucking agree to it. Buy some other product that doesn't have that.
No, that might actually if it was like 1,000+ pages, right, and it was like that complicated, you could potentially have a case for unconscionability, right? Which is that it's so absurd and so large that like it's not reasonable for a person.
I understand the case on like a payday loan because it's like a predatory like contract or whatever the fuck, right? But I don't. But in terms of like a doorbell camera, right? You're saying, hey, this doorbell camera is requiring me to sign up for
signed up to the cloud, like it's almost expected
is requiring
that it's going to happen.
Is requiring me to agree to a 1,000-page terms of service like shit. Well, hey, get another fucking doorbell camera. Like, go somewhere else.
Yeah,
or just don't put fucking cameras all over your house like a dummy.
Like, if someone has like a Google Home,
but we have a very real instance, a very real case that we can look at, and in this real case, it's actually happening, right? It's not some science fiction; it's actually happening. No, it's very clear in the EULA. This is very clear.
You guys can call it a EULA. That's what like lawyers call it, a EULA.
A EULA?
Okay. Yeah, it makes it easier for you. But.
I mean, technically speaking, it isn't an end user license agreement. Because they don't call it. It's just a term of service. But because you're paying a monthly subscription to the cloud service, right? And you're paying that each month, and that terms of service is subject to change in between those times, and they have to like warn you when they change the terms of service and stuff like that. But this has been there since 2020. Like, this isn't a new thing they added. This has been there for 2 years.
Like Kaylee. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go first, please.
I was going to ask Kaylee because he said, is this the world you want or whatever? Like, what's wrong with this world that we're talking about, Kaylee? Because like we're literally just saying, hey, if you're going to sign up for some kind of contract or agree to some terms of service, you should probably fucking read it. You should probably know what's in there, what you're agreeing to.
Just at a whim, all willy-nilly, these companies can just watch you fuck or watch you shower.
You don't put the fucking camera in.
And if you don't want to agree to the terms of service,
nobody has that expectation that there's a reason why people put the tape over. It's because they're thinking, are they spying on me at any given time?
Exactly.
How many times have you had a fucking camera pointed at you when you shouldn't?
People
Just
might be
like
watching
being an
you
adult.
right
Like,
now.
I don't-
There might be people watching you right now. They might be seeing you talk
I
and have this
know my
conversation
beautiful
right now. They're
face
watching
is
you.
just being an inspiration to them all, and they should all go to KOE Nation on YouTube and subscribe.
So,
yes.
KOE, I'm assuming with you saying that no one ever should point a camera where they shouldn't. So I'm assuming that the only place that you've had sex in your house is the bedroom. You've never decided to do it anywhere else besides the bedroom.
Don't answer
It's a
this. I don't want to
goddamn
know,
lie.
please. I'm
But
you
yeah,
right now,
yeah,
please.
hence why I don't have cameras all over my fucking house. Okay, like yeah, like
I mean, the
Let's go
Supreme
to-
Court has already, but the Supreme Court has already settled that in terms of defining what is a reasonable expectation of
Let's
privacy.
go to
Right? Like, you use a telescopic lens or some shit
a
to
camera
look into
inside
someone's
your
living
house
room.
that
Like,
some
that's a
corporate
violation of
person is
privacy.
now
Yeah,
spying on
LSP.
some Beetle bureaucrat is watching a million miles away. Like, yeah, that is a fucking violation of a basic
LSP.
expectation of privacy.
Firstly-
However you want to fucking boil it down.
Oh my God, LSP.
Firstly, Sprout, the living room's for fucking, the bedroom's for sucking. Phil's got it down pat. Secondly, Doobie, to answer your question, what's wrong with this reality where people are willingly signing into a terms of service that lets people fuck? They don't know that that's what
Sex
they're
work is
signing.
real
That's
work,
the
yes.
issue. I don't disagree it's real work, but the issue is that people don't know that that's what they're signing, right? People don't understand that going in. The vast majority of people, even if it's easy to access, even if it's easy to understand, the vast majority of people don't look into those kinds of consumer protections. So I can offer you a better world. How about a world where if you want this service, you opt into it? Because I think if people want that service, they would opt into it. And if the vast majority of people knew that that was the kind of services they were getting, they'd want to opt out of it. That gives the
And I
most
think-
people the most liberty and allows companies to still continue.
I think
gathering
if you
data.
buy this Ring doorbell and then further sign up to have your shit stored on the cloud, right? You are opting into it.
Yeah.
That is literally
Obviously.
opting into it.
Even if you don't know that's what you're opting into.
You're at the
You don't,
very,
you don't
even if you don't
understand how
read
this.
even
It's
if you
not
don't
like
read
somebody's,
the
like,
agreement,
sneaking-
you're opting in to keep all of your data from that camera in a corporation server.
Okay,
and
let me
you're
ask
just
again. Do
assuming
you
that
think
they
the
don't know
majority
this?
of
This
people
bottle of
who get
whiskey, it
these
tells you
services-
exactly the alcohol in just a few little digits. It's not a multi-page
Can you just
fucking
send me that
contract where you
alcohol
understand what you're opting into.
Yeah, let me.
You
yeah,
have to make it stupid fucking simple for people
wait.
because there's people that are fucking like I'm
Don't-
sorry,
don't
I've
say
met very many
people. Don't
simple
say
people in
me.
this life.
Say me. You need
Some
to,
people
you
can't
need to
even
make it really
fucking
super for
read
you.
but past
wrong
the
with
fifth grade
opt-in?
level.
just let make it opt in. What's wrong with making it opt in?
That is opt-in. What's more opt-in than that? The second
You
you
can literally get
opt-in.
a ring.
No, no, that
I
people
want my
aren't
shit stored
aware
on the
that
cloud.
they're
You're
opting
literally
into.
opting in.
I
when you
gave
do
you
that.
what's
To be
more
clear,
opt-in.
To be
People
clear,
aren't
what
aware
this
that that's what they're
is,
opting into.
what this
So, I mean,
product is, it's a camera, right, that videotapes and records things that it can see and stores it, as was said, in a cloud. That's a service that you sign up for. So I think that it's a logical leap. It's a fairly easy logical leap to see that they might use this, right, in criminal investigation and things like that.
no,
Like
okay,
when
wait,
it comes to
okay,
anything.
wait,
I think,
wait.
no, I think, guys, I think, like, I would agree for people like us, right, who are like plugged into these things, who discuss these things all the time. It's quite obvious, right? But for other people, it's actually not. They actually don't think that deeply. I'm with KOE here, as I always am. But is that
I think that's just a
people
soft
don't
bigotry of
people
low
don't
expectations.
actually
No,
have
just
the-
game recognized game.
No,
You
look,
wouldn't
it's
know.
just actual reality, right? People do get shocked when you say some of these basic things about how these services work, right? People are shocked that about how much Google knows about them. I mean, they typed in all that information to Google, but they're shocked that Google actually retained all that information. Like it's so. I would agree that people should think more deeply about this, but they don't. And in this world where they don't, I think LSP is saying something completely reasonable, right? Like, you can still put the camera on your doorstep, but like you give the users an option. Hey, can we hand this over to law enforcement if necessary, right? And then you can opt in or opt out. That's the second layer of opt in that you could have, right? Like, why wouldn't please answer LSP's question? Why wouldn't that be like the option of the most liberty, where you get to have all of that you could have access to these valuable services, and it is valuable, right? But
It's definitionally
also-
not liberty, because
okay.
but unless the company voluntarily chooses to make that the case, if you're talking about like the
Only
state coming
required.
in,
that are serving.
that's definitionally not liberty because you're violating
No,
Fabian,
private
you'll love
property
this.
owners'
The
rights.
problem is the
Individual.
state, actually, Prime. The problem
God,
is
I
actually
hate
the
this.
state in that there is no door that a warrant cannot open. And that is the biggest problem here is if the law enforcement believes there is data there is no door a warrant cannot open. So there you go, Fabian. There's an instance where it's the
so-
So
state.
to answer
Wait,
to
flummoxing it all.
directly to address this opt-in thing directly, there comes a point where how much is enough? Like, do you also need like a confirmation box you have to check to make super sure that you're opting in for this? Like, how many boxes do we need to check here above and beyond a terms of service or a EULA, right? That makes you like actually opt in. Like, if there was a little box, right, that said it, that you'd have to check, like right, someone's going to be complaining the next day that, well, I didn't really read it. I just kind of skimmed over it and I checked the box because I wanted to check the box and I didn't really understand what was going on. Like, how many layers of defense
One.
do we need before it's considered reasonable? And I think
We
that
have one.
He's
Yeah,
always
we
had
have
one.
one. It's the EULA.
Wait,
No,
You
no.
want two.
So-
No. Well, I'm sorry. I thought you meant an extra layer. Sorry. Then 2. Fine. If you're dividing it that way, then 2. Sure.
so
I mean, I see nothing wrong with that. Like, I think that at the end of the day, that would be cool, right?
Wait.
But when we talk about, is it a violation if they don't have that? Is it something that we should enforce?
wait,
Then you
listen.
don't get me.
Wait, listen, right? So like imagine you're at your wedding, right? And you've hired me to be your photographer. I don't know why you hired me to be your photographer. I'm a pretty awful
Whatever.
one, but
Carry
so in my contract I have that I'm able to give the pictures that I take of you out to third parties for anything from from promotional material to security. And then I kind of mark the ones, and at the very bottom I label what each one means, and security means that I can give if there's a legal problem, I can give the pictures to the police. And I take pictures of you, and you know what, you're in one of the background and you're dealing drugs to one of your friends, and then I just see it while I'm editing. I'm like, oh well, this goes to the police, and just off it goes. You're good with that?
Yes. If I chose that and I agreed to that, then
that
yes,
would be a
first
violation
I
of the
wouldn't be doing
contract.
like dealing drugs, right? Like,
It's
this is
literally a
gonna-
violation of the
situation-
contract you just set up.
No, it's not.
Yes, you did. You said it had to be like a danger or emergency.
Okay,
Or-
No, I
let's
said
just
security.
say it was
I said
something
security.
illegal that was- I
Okay,
would
well then
think
we
that
can
was
deal with
wrong,
that in
right?
court, and then you'll either get sued out of business, or you'll learn to make a better fucking contract, or you'll learn not to share stupid shit,
Or you don't sell drugs to people.
or you don't sell drugs at
Yeah,
your
if-
wedding. Like
Like,
it's
look,
weird-
if I would,
weirdly enough,
if- let me
Put
ask
cameras
you this.
everywhere.
Let me
I
ask
run
you
a
this: if
legitimate
you were a
business.
wedding photographer, Sprout, and one of your pictures captured child abuse, right? Like legit child abuse, do you not think that, regardless of the contract, you would have the obligation to turn that into the police?
I'm already obliged to do that, but
Yeah,
that's a
so
different
I
story.
would ask
Yes,
the question,
that's what I'm saying. Is
are you in
we-
favor of abolishing that obligation? Actually, is my question.
In favor of abolishing the obligation of reporting child abuse? No.
well, that's
Yeah,
all that's in this contract. That's all we're talking about.
No, it's not. No, it's
These
not.
11 cases were like the article even from CNN specifically states that in each of the 11 cases this year, Amazon's VP of policy Brian Hausman wrote, Ring determined that the police request met the imminent danger threshold and provided the information without delay. There was an imminent threat to people's safety, and that's why out of 1.4 million users, these 11 times they gave that to the police without an immediate warrant, because there was an immediate threat to people's safety. I mean, that could be wrong. We could investigate that. Maybe that could be a lie, but I mean, 11 doesn't seem like an absurd amount of
thing
Yeah,
he says is imminent danger. He doesn't give any. It's probably the publicist for Amazon saying this.
Right.
What is the cutoff for a
Real quick,
ridiculous
real
amount of
quick,
times?
Real quick, please.
Is there a
please.
cutoff?
So
What if
I-
it's a million
wait,
users and they did it a million times?
So if I'm coming into my house, right, it's late at night, and someone's attacking me in the there's camera footage right now. I want them to immediately contact the police, get someone there as fast as possible. That's a net good, right? That's something
Why are they watching you? Why are they watching your camera long enough to know
Blake
you're
is an
getting
extremely
attacked?
interesting person.
No, if you have
No.
like,
I'm curious,
AI
Fabian. Is
recognition
there a
software
cutoff
to
here?
tag
What is the
pretty
ridiculous
quickly.
amount?
Look,
I'm sorry, Wick,
recognition
but I just
software
gotta
can tag
know.
things pretty quickly, recognize different things pretty quickly, and it can get them to the appropriate authorities you'd be scarily prompt manner. Let's just say that. Like, we have that technology.
For the record, a gun is a lot better than a ring. But anyways, KOE, I never made that argument. I never said that there was a reasonable or an arbitrary limit to what was reasonable and unreasonable.
Such a small amount, it seems almost reasonable. And
right,
so,
what
is an unreasonable?
What I'm saying is that it is evidence that this is not something that they're just doing willy-nilly. That if they have 1.4 million users and there's only 11 cases in a year, it is evidence that these are probably limit cases of extreme outliers. Like, if there was 2,000 of them, if there was 10,000 of them, it'd be like, okay, we got to look into this. There's a lot of these fucking cases. Like, it's pretty obvious that some of these are going to be like, not necessarily fit the contract. We should look into this. But when you see 11 cases out of 1.4 million users, you kind of tend to think like these are likely outliers. This is not like the normal situation. I'm not saying that that there is an appropriate number. I'm just saying that number tends to make you think like probably not just giving it out willy-nilly all the time.
Okay, because I was just wondering, what is the limiting factor there? Because, like, when you're saying it seems like it's not all that big. Like, I can't remember your exact.
Well, they say imminent threat.
I was going to say, like, well, okay, is 14 still unreasonable? Is 20 or still fairly reasonable? Is 100 still fairly reasonable? 1,000, 5,000, and like, what is the limiting factor there? Because
there's no limiting factor.
Once you violate a principle, the first time you violate,
you're literally talking about something totally different.
Well, no. I'm talking about once we start, when we go down this fucking rabbit hole, we are not fucking coming back. And that's what I'm getting at, is once we have cameras everywhere in every fucking aspect of our house, and companies and the government can just spy on us,
you're arguing
willy fucking nilly, we're not going to be able to close this Pandora's box. So it might be worth examining on the way in.
You're using scary language to attach to your bad.
Because it's true.
You're using scary language to attack
because it's true, man. I'm sorry.
No, it's not
scary for you. It's
nobody
uses concerned about.
Okay, LSP.
Sorry. Stressing the limits.
Accept your concession, Fabian. If you had better arguments, you wouldn't need the insults.
No, the moderator's going to stop me from dismantling.
You just said this is too stupid to engage with. If you had better arguments, you wouldn't need the insults. So I accept your concession, sir.
LSP.
You're both so cute.
Yeah,
I hope you know that.
I'm fucking gorgeous. Thank you.
You really are, man. I just feel like cuddling you would be like the
I'm one damn handsome man.
That's true. Okay, so I'm gonna try to reach out to the ANCAPs and Doobie, stupid, basically by emphasizing the concept of individualism here. And I want to stress limits on liberty. Conceive of a future where a EULA agreement outright states that a business will report illegal activity to the police. And now we've become Nazi Germany and having a gun is illegal. Just conceive of it. Corporations, government are two of the most powerful institutions this world knows. They should check and balance each other rather than cooperate to violate my privacy rights. The rights of individuals are paramount here. So unless a positive affirmation and permission is given, the minimum amount of privacy that should exist is an affirmative opt-in from consumers. I think that's reasonable. All right, there you go.
I'm just still laughing at the idea that corporations and government will like be a balance of power against each other. Like, nah, dog. They're both going to work together to fuck you over.
These are two of the biggest owners of capital in the world. Since when do capital not compete? What do you think regulations are if not like a curtailing of the power of corporations?
What do you think regulatory capture is if not corporations working with the state to fuck over everyone else?
Regulation is usually intent to
you know what? Actually, I've made this
I don't know what he's talking about. Government restricts what corporations can do all the time. I have no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah. That's you poor child. Just read C. Wright Mills' Dual Power Theory.
I actually
not enough.
Just read Plato.
On this,
I don't know how to respond to this.
On this
shit.
narrow point, I have to agree with Scott. and it pains me. Like, it actually burns. Like, I
I
got
see the
the
pain in your
doctor to
eye.
check it out because, like, I might have caught something. But that, like,
That's really the part we're going to
Corporations-
zero in on. This
this-
idea that corporations and government could cooperate to violate your rights isn't scary to fucking any of you.
no, it
You
is
small
scary.
government people. Like, think of this.
No. It is
That's
yeah,
my
when
point.
did we
You
ever
should
say
have us-
otherwise?
No, it is scary.
Well,
but
no,
what
you
he's
have,
saying-
Phil. To your credit, you have.
He's saying
Okay.
no. Okay, so what Scott is saying is that it's a natural alliance between the corporations and these governments, right? That with that concentration,
The state
of,
grants
money and
monopolies.
power,
So of course corporations work with the states where
They're
they can be
going to-
granted monopolies.
exactly to be granted. I agree with
Is
you
it
there.
not? Okay, so the
they're
state
gonna
might
work
help
with that
corporations in
curious.
one
because they
way,
have so
and they
much-
might like
at
restrict
some
them in
point-
another
Oh my god,
way.
hold on.
We're having a.
So- oh my
okay.
god, hold on. So,
Oh my god, hold on. That's you.
Shut up. Thanks. Okay. Fucking hell. So no, I agree with Scott, right? Like, at some point when you gather enough wealth, there's a tipping point. The tipping point in which you can use that wealth to assert your power within the government, and then use that to reinforce the power that you already have. And that comes in the form of regulatory capture. Like mom and pop stores can't do regulatory capture, but like a massive supermarket chain might be able to do that. And then they use that to
Or Amazon.
reinforce a monopoly. Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. Yeah. So like, is there a natural cooperation, right? Like,
Okay.
and if the government wants to use
Can I-
their services, right, for law enforcement purposes, right, to squash the people, the corporations are only so happy to do so as long as they will continue to protect their property.
Okay,
I just
so there
need to
was
say one thing real quick. It'll just be 10, 15 seconds. This is actually a fascinating thing. I don't know, Prime, or if anybody within the sound of my voice ever heard of this, but Benito Mussolini once gave a definition for fascism. Fascism is the combination of corporate and state power, the fusion of corporate and state power, folks. And so we might be going into darker days than we ever knew. And with that, I yield.
Okay, because I guess I'm misunderstood. Corporations can be helped by government in some ways and hurt by government in the other ways. The very topic we're having, the very talk we're having, stems from a case where government tried to access data from somebody. They tried to unlock somebody's phone and they couldn't do it, and they wanted to compel a corporation to help them. Right? There are situations where there's a fundamental clash in interests. Just because I'm saying that sometimes government like restricts corporations doesn't mean that like that's always restrictive or that it never helps. Obviously,
Well,
it's not. Right? But
I
I am
agree
saying
with you, except for the word fundamental. The clash is not fundamental. It sometimes happens. There's sometimes clash, but it's not fundamental. It's not, it's not inherently the case that that regulatory capture doesn't happen, or that there's not incentivization for that when you have very powerful concentrations of power within oligarchic corporate system.
LSP?
Take away the word fundamental, and I could grant you more ground.
Honestly, just read, like I said, he's a fucking commune, right?
Just read a book.
Just read See Right. It's not even a book. It's like a long article. Like, it'll be a great read for you if you're left wing. Like, just read C. Wright Mills's dual power, elite power theory. Sorry, dual power Lenin.
Yeah, can we stand reading books though instead of just video essays and articles? I think we've lost something when all we do
It's
is
not that
read
bad.
Twitter
No,
takes
we
and things.
can't even read
We
the
need to read
EULA
more
agreements that are
long-form
sending
shit.
our
We need to
news
read
to
books.
Amazon. Like,
We need
of
to-
course, we're not going to read a book.
You said it was C.J. Wright, and what was it called?
C. Wright Mills.
C. Wright Mills.
Oh, I've
and-
recorded 2 audiobooks in the last year, which I just put a link to.
I've had
This is 1956, right? And he's
Sorry,
describing
I'm
the
a whore.
way
Power
he's
Elite?
describing the history, right? The Power Elite. He's describing the way that the elites changed over time and the ways that they both clash and work together. And he basically creates a tripartite between the prison military industrial complex, the corporate complex, and the elites of the state, and the ways that they like kind of share each other. They have the same culture. They go to the same schools, but they separate themselves by family names and nepotism. It's a great read.
Thank you.
Even for right wingers, you should definitely read it if you want to understand the elites
Yeah,
to some degree.
even
You'll get
for
triggered as
non-right-wingers.
fuck.
Even
You'll
for
get triggered
non-right-wingers,
as fuck, but
it's called reading what the other side thinks, and it's probably a good idea to do so you can understand their arguments. But yeah,
right.
I've had
Like,
plenty
and
of
if he came at me with those arguments, I'd have arguments against him. But he's not even like at that level. So like, I'm just trying to get him up to like a level that we can actually debate.
Back to the topic at hand, however, right? When we talk about like privacy and the right to privacy, I think that we should expect certain rights when it comes to privacy. The problem is, as been mentioned several times on this panel, the government has way more involvement in your life and way more information on you than you would be comfortable knowing. It's like we all forgot all these leaks for the NSA and all these things that they were doing to us. It's like we've had this kind of national amnesia. And we willingly put ourselves on social media platforms such as TikTok. And it's not just the American government that's gathering data on us. The Chinese government is gathering so much data through apps like TikTok that, for example, service members, you can't have TikTok on your phone because, again, they can track that shit. So, we've willingly sacrificed our privacy as a culture. We've just given it up willy-nilly. And KOE mentioned the Pandora's box. That's open. It's gone. It's flown the coop. Right. So now we got to deal with the world as it is now, because we're
the real Pandora is when there's a camera in every room. When it's almost mandated, or you can't even operate a house or function a household without microphones and cameras in every room, where you have to go lights on in order to turn your lights on, TV on.
There's a hacked camera in every room.
That's Star Trek is what you're describing.
If we have
lights
we all
on.
carry the telescreen.
Again, as I said in my opening statement here, if Amazon Ring was mandated right in a locality or to a city or municipality, then I have strong opposition to that. But it's not. It's something that it's a product that people can buy, purchase, and they understand, or should understand, what they're getting into. Should we make it more
of corporate state power, like Mussolini said?
Sure.
What happens if that fucking rings in? Then we're all up shit creek. And that there's a reason why we have a Fourth Amendment, and to even extent a Third Amendment in our Bill of Rights, is because there is an idea of a certain amount of sacrosanct privacy and integrity of the individual that can be violated, but in some way by the state. That's why you should be securing yourself and your papers. And now we're about to be losing that real fucking quick. And that's why I'm saying that's the real Pandora's box. When there is a goddamn microphone to operate everything in your house, in every room of your house, now you're really fucked. When the fucking DARPA can get into your fucking house in every room,
does Amazon Ring ain't that? Like, I get you, I get what you're saying, but Amazon Ring ain't that. It's not that.
Amazon Ring is just one
6 years. Jesus Christ.
The Supreme Court has just
already proved in 2014 that we're way past that, and no one went to jail.
Supreme Court has not stopped the NSA or DARPA ever.
No one went to jail.
They might do like 5, 6, 7 years
Nobody
after
cares.
the fact, but
like everyone in America just decided collectively that they're going to let the government have access to all of your information whenever they want.
So KOE, I just want to add that now officially the right to privacy has been struck down by the Supreme Court. So I wouldn't make reference to that now this year.
Well, we still have a Fourth Amendment and a Third Amendment, so there still is some individual rights to privacy, just clearly still in the Constitution.
But the Supreme Court just said that those things don't imply a right to privacy.
Yeah, they're fucking.
No, they're making a much more slimmer on the Roe v. Wade case, but I understand what you're saying. They're making a much more slimmer ruling than we're just saying is there's no right to privacy anymore. But we are we are closer to the laboratory of democracy that we were supposed to be at our founding. So now there is a lot more states' rights in the regard of states are going to now choose, is tobacco a thing? There's states that now can ban tobacco now. Now legal weed is now up to the states. So that's actually what the Supreme Court actually did there. There's implied rights and expressed rights, and we actually have expressed rights in the Fourth Amendment. So,
okay,
I'm not convinced they'll stick to that.
So, okay, LSP, did you have something else to say there?
Everything Phil is saying is based, and you're just stupid if you disagree with it. Cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was actually going to ask Doobie something, but he stepped away for a moment, so we'll wait for him. But okay, so what do I feel about this? I think that I'm not entirely unsympathetic to what LSP and Doobie are saying, that like, look, there should be a reasonable expectation that when you're storing information on other servers on off location, some company servers, that someone will get their hands on it, right? And I hear you when you say KOE that there's no door that a warrant can't open, but like specifically what we're talking about is cases where they're not even asking for a warrant, right? That the government is just like saying, "Hey, pretty please," and I'm like, "No, that's cool." It's not difficult to get a warrant. It is actually not. It's actually very easy. If it's an emergency situation, you can just like call it in, right? And judges are like, "Yeah, sure, no problem. You got this." This is the thing that happens. You can get a warrant and if it is life or death, right? If it's an emergency situation, if it's that urgent, then yeah, judge is like, "No, that's cool, right? Yeah, sure, yeah, go ahead." And then you got yourself a warrant. So it seems to me that that's a reasonable expectation, right? And then the moment that we get used to just corporations deciding, I guess whatever this law enforcement agency says is okay, right? Then I think we've lost something fundamental, and I think that's an easy slippery slope. And it's an easy one, and we should just start handing out more and more. And what if they thought like, well, we have contracts with this agency, right? And Amazon does. Amazon has contracts like with lots of law enforcement agencies, and like, well, we want to preserve our relationship with them, and then they just start handing out that information. That's a problem. Maybe we should make it so that you absolutely, at the very least, just get a warrant. It's not hard for officers to get warrants, right?
You'd have to scale back so many Supreme Court decisions for our country to even be there. Like you have probable cause,
scale it away.
Exceptions. You'd have like fucking special needs doctrine. You have like everything that deals with a car, right? Like you have special rules that deal with a lot of these electronics and things like that. You have plain view doctrine, right? Like warrants are damn near meaningless at this fucking point anyways. Like there's so many fucking exceptions that the Supreme Court has decided, and it's so difficult with so many immunities that the police have anyways when they decide to fucking violate the shit. Like I honestly feel like I'm talking to a bunch of people that are pretending like they don't have hope, but deep in their hearts they have a fuck ton of hope about this entire goddamn system, whilst pretending like they don't have hope, because like I'm actually black-pilled over here and I'm just like, dog, like the only thing fixing
I've never
shit
pretended any such thing. I was about to say, Lord Almighty God, please just let Clarence Thomas write one sweeping Fourth Amendment decision and set it right like he did Second Amendment jurisprudence for a full generation. Lord Almighty God, please. Yeah. So sorry, Fabian, I'm not quite as fatalistic as you, sir. The black pill is cynicism is fun, but it doesn't get you anywhere. It's like
I have a question
to
for
be
Prime,
clear,
if I may.
please,
Rocket,
please, LSP.
Fabian, I don't trust the government to do shit. That's why I want these checks and balances in place.
Here.
That's why at minimum there needs to be a fucking warrant. That's why at minimum there needs to be a law mandating you don't get to share this kind of data.
I don't trust the government. Therefore, we need the government to make sure that the government doesn't do bad things.
Like, do you think the Supreme Court isn't a check on the executive branch or Congress?
I think that the Supreme Court is actually designed, maybe not intentionally.
Okay, cool. You're not going to answer the question. Well, the government check and balance each other is the point. So if you don't, I don't trust government either. So let it check and balance each other.
Oh my God, dude! Like you were such a midwit. I think that the Supreme Court. I think that the Supreme.
Mama!
I believe that the Supreme Court, in the way that it is designed, by especially after Warren, in the ability to determine the constitutionality of laws, is in such a way that it is inevitably going to grow the size and scope of the state. Because once it gives permissions, it rarely takes those permissions away. And because of the very structure of the Supreme Court, it actually grows the power of the state over time. And that it's not actually a good check or balance. Instead, what it is a factor that allows the state to grow in power.
I think I might agree with you there.
If I may,
if you will.
Quick.
Yeah, if I may, just Prime. During your tirade earlier, I have a question for you. Right, that they need a warrant. Even if someone has bought this system with full knowledge and full understanding that they want their information sent out right away without waiting for a warrant, would you still require a warrant in that place? Even if we had LSP's suggestion from earlier, right, where someone checked the box, opted in, would you still require a warrant for that, or is that not
No.
enough of a
Oh, no.
feature?
Like, okay, so there were this has come up a few times before, right? I don't think it was Ring. Maybe it was. I don't know. But it was a similar service. It was like an app, right? Like a neighborhood like watch app. It was like controversial, like a neighborhood watch app that people were using, like My Community or some shit like that, right? And it was basically they're using it to like report black people in white neighborhoods. But this idea of like sharing this info with cops, it's fine if like the police department says like, hey, we would really like to be using this, right, to keep our community safe, right, from black people in white neighborhoods. But like we'd really like to do that. So would you like to hand over this information to us? And a lot of people would say yes. So please give them that option if that's what they want. So to send it directly to the to police, right? If they want to hook up I would hook up a camera in my toilet, right? And direct feed to the police of me taking a shit. I want to share that information with them. So yeah, we should be able to opt into these types of things. I'm okay.
I didn't know
with that.
Fnatic jumped on the panel, but the app is called Neighbors.
Neighbors? Was it Neighbors? Okay, thank you.
Okay. So yeah, to be clear, you'd be fine with people opting in. Okay, that was my only question, because again, during your monologue there, it wasn't clear to me. But thank you for clarifying.
And I would ask the clarifying question now. So do you want also an opt-in of like Facebook scanning like your photos and messages and all that stuff?
Would I
or would you want like a warrant for each time Facebook wants to scan your photos and messages?
Okay, so you mean the so sorry, you said Facebook scanning it, or
yeah, so what happens is I think everyone knows that Facebook is like scanning your messages and photos, but then like if they come across or it's flagged, that they catch it and then it's mandatorily reported, specifically like the child sexual abuse imagery. Like
give it to universities and third parties all the time too.
Yeah,
that's for data. Yeah.
That's
Part
part of how they make their
feel
money.
when the government starts using all this for drug busts.
That's a
Because that's
okay.
coming
Sounds great,
within
actually.
5 years.
It's almost like
Get used to
that's
your
the real
justice in
problem.
5 years, America. It's gonna be real fun.
Yeah, that's it. Well, don't do fucking drugs. Don't sell drugs. You don't need to worry about the drug boss. Like, I don't understand. Like, don't do illegal shit.
Business with
And
it.
it's not a problem.
Do you believe in any privacy rights at all?
Well, I think I'm much more okay with the government being able to peer into my life than you guys are.
Okay, that's not what I asked.
But well, I wasn't done speaking. But
Dude,
I think
drops
with
the old,
with
if
these
you have
services
nothing to fear,
specifically,
you have nothing to hide argument. It's been invalid
actually,
for 2,000
yeah,
years.
it's not invalid at all.
Of
But
course
I think
fucking
with
invalid.
these specific services,
Everybody has much they have to
these
hide. Everyone has a
specific-
right to be a
God.
fucking private person.
with
Holy
these
fuck.
specific
Fucking silly of
services,
you.
right? Which are like which I think using the service at all is enough of an opt-in for me. All right, if you're not comfortable with them having the information or sharing the information, don't use the service. Don't agree to the TOS. It's very simple.
Doobie, you said someone said this TOS started in 2020. So say someone bought the Ring camera for their house in 2019, December of 2019, right? And the new TOS came, or the new terms of service, or EULA, whatever you want to call it. It came out in 2020. You just bought this Amazon Ring camera for several $100s, and now you're forced to either stop using it or accept the agreement that Amazon is forcing you to accept to use it.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
What's the issue with that?
You don't see the issue with that?
Video game. So a great parallel to this, right?
Forcing
Not
something
privacy
onto a
rights,
customer
but like
after the point
video
of
games
purchase?
do this. Video
I can't
games
see
do this all the
how that could be a problem.
Video games do this all the time, right? Where like they sell a AAA rated game and they talk about how like, oh, there's going to be an item shop or whatever, but it's going to be purely cosmetic, we promise, right? And then like 2 months after the game releases, like they put pay to win features and like loot boxes and all kinds of shit into the game. And you bought a game under the idea
That's
that it would
nowhere near the
last for a
same
certain-
severity as privacy.
Wait, hold on, but
Okay,
Discord
you're
does
not
this.
letting me fucking make any argument. These people will just want
Because
yes
video
or no.
games is nowhere near the
Quit,
severity.
Dumb fucks, Jesus! Tonight is
Why are you
do
comparing
kind of filibuster a bit.
video games to
To be
privacy?
fair.
big to make a goddamn point that other people
Look,
are
just say
aware
read a
of the
book and we'll
analogy.
move on.
Jesus
Just say read a book.
Christ,
Brevity is the father of
people.
wit.
No, it's oh
Wait, hold on.
God.
So
no, it's just
Sprout.
univariate analysis from
God.
dumbasses. Let me fucking finish.
Again, I
right?
accept your
So if they
secondary
sell
condition. I mean,
you-
concession, man.
sell
Stop. I
you-
mean, if you had
if
better
they
arguments,
sell
wouldn't you
you-
use
Let's Scott finish, please.
KOE, Jesus Christ. If you sell people on a concept, right? And you say that it will do this thing for an extended period of time, and then you break that, that's fraud, right?
What about
So
what about what's like constitutionally protected right?
Okay, you're not constitutionally protected from signing away your right
Privacy
to
is
privacy
not
in the
constitutionally
way.
protected.
Oh my God. Honestly, like I'm done for the night. I'll like wait until we do outros because there's too many fucking idiots on tonight.
So it's
Like,
not that
like,
privacy.
honestly,
It's
like,
not that you
wow.
don't have some
That
kind of
is a
like,
true
like
tap
constitution
out. I'm
protected
pretty
right to
proud.
privacy. The issue is that you also have the right to sign away that right to privacy. And when you agree to these terms of service, that's what you're doing.
I'd
Well,
like to.
I agree you have that right, but it should be knowingly. What's wrong with that?
Read the terms of service. Like
You know
be an
people
adult.
don't. You know,
Be an
people-
adult. Be an
People
adult. Read
are.
the shit that you sign.
Everyone should be there to
Well,
protect
then,
people's
well, then
individual
why-
rights.
Okay, then I don't understand. So if someone can't fucking read, do we just not have terms of service ever? Do we have it?
No,
have
we
it says on-
accommodate society to
go
meet
by
their
their
needs.
fucking house
We
and read
accommodate
it out.
society
Hey,
to meet their
what
individual
if the
needs so
person's
that their
deaf?
rights are protected.
What if the person's deaf and dumb and retarded and
Then
they
you
don't
get
know
somebody
they
there
can't
to
understand
sign
words
it
at all?
for them.
But
Yes.
what if they're blind? You know, what if they can't see anything? What if they can't feel
It's
anything from the outside world
Braille.
whatsoever? How do they agree
Like,
to the terms of
I
service?
hate the Americans with disabilities.
ridiculous.
Wishes were horses, then beggars would ride.
What you do, Doobie, is you make society accommodate these people by meeting their needs. That way, you best protect their individual rights.
Yeah,
So,
I think that you can do that to a point, and what you're reaching for is unreasonable.
He's still here. But hold on. I wanted to. He disappeared. Okay. I wanted to try to tackle Corey's question because Corey asked a really interesting question, right? Which is not common for this panel, but
Or for me, for Matt.
yeah. But no, Corey. So you talked about Facebook, scanning pictures and then reporting cases of child abuse to law enforcement. So this isn't a new problem at all, right? Like, way back when, Kaylee remember this because he's old. Way back when we had like film cameras, right? And you would take them to like a Kodak store or something to get them, made, right? Like into
1
pictures.
hour photo.
Yeah, right. Like, there's a movie about this.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Good movie.
where-
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams.
yeah, Robin Williams, exactly. Yeah,
It was
so
creepy as
you
shit.
are required. You were required there to like report this shit, right? Like sometimes, like an idiot, like oh my god, like a really dumb child abuser. We're like, hey, like I need you to take a look at that film.
Our little
I mean, it's
secret.
really sad, but like,
Yeah, it is.
evidence of me doing child abuse, amazing.
Just between you, me, and the Kodak guy.
Yeah, but like that's the thing that happened, and how do I feel about that, right? Like, let's say that was even not in terms of service that they had that we might report yourself. Well, one that was statutory, right? At least it was in the law. I think that's. I know it's a weak distinction, but I'm gonna try to make it any which way, right? It's very weak. But I think it's one thing if we have a law that comes out of our democratic society, quote unquote democratic society, that says that this is a thing that can happen, right? Rather than within a company's terms of service, right? A fickle company that can change its mind, as Doobie and Scott already admitted, right? Yeah, they could just change their mind and whatever, right? And you just have to deal with that because that's just the way things are. Rather than that, like we have a law that we could theoretically be able to change as a group, as a society, we could change that law. For that, I think that would be, I think that in itself is an improvement on the situation, but I don't think it. I'm fully answering your question because you're asking me what would I want Facebook to necessarily not notify the authorities, right? Until the authorities made like a proactive warrant or something for this particular case.
Yeah, or even like, how do you feel about the scanning in general, right? Like, do you want Facebook to stop knowing that they report millions annually of, horrific stuff? do you want that scanning to stop for the sake of privacy? I think that's also like that might be a whole separate topic altogether, but like that's where it's like I have mixed feelings about it. Yeah, but it's like I think it's difficult to tackle.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So Prime and LSP and Sprout, I'd love you guys to answer that question.
Yeah, it's a really tough question.
I think I already answered the Facebook question.
Wait, I'm sorry. What was your question? I wasn't paying attention.
So it's Corey's question.
Yeah. So knowing that currently Facebook scans your messages and images and photos, and as a result of that scanning, it results in the mandatory reporting of tens of millions of child sexual abuse imagery. Would you want that scanning to stop for the sake of privacy?
I've already answered that question.
Yeah, I'm fine with that kind of scanning.
Okay.
What if they don't opt into the scanning?
I think what you need to opt into is having your data reported, not necessarily the scanning. It seems like you're opting into this service no matter what if it's hooked into a cloud.
Isn't that the same with the Ring
in order
camera?
to apprehend people that abuse children, there's really no length that I'm willing to go, or even principle I'm willing to concede when it comes to actually just capturing and putting behind bars people that actually abuse physically.
I have a question on that, KOA.
On that same one, before we go there, on that same wave like LSP, right? LSP. If you are okay with Facebook doing the scan, then you would also be okay if Amazon with their Ring cameras saw like an instance of child abuse apparently on someone's porch, whatever. And they had that and then reported that to
I would be fine with it. Those are like the very niche circumstances that I would be totally fine with it, where there is some sort of a public harm threat or like an instance of abuse, like some severe illegality.
What if someone was running like a massive drug dealer and running the operation out of their house and had a webcam that was connected to Amazon's cloud, and that caught all the meth making in their house?
He does it. Like, he does the drug dealing right in front of his webcam. He poses for the webcam.
Yeah, in front of his laptop. Why not? Yeah, in front of his laptop.
You have like 20 grams of crack and you film yourself.
Hold on.
Doing
So
that,
in that case, given that there's substantial damage to the community, there's substantial damage to the community possible there, right? Why shouldn't Amazon report something like that?
Amazon shouldn't.
Why?
In my mind, it's the right to privacy. I don't believe that.
Okay,
I'm gonna answer your next question if you'd let me keep talking.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't believe that the crime that you're saying is as egregious as the niche circumstance of child abuse that I agreed with Facebook.
Okay, so manufacturing and selling a product that leads to tens of thousands of people in this country getting addicted and dying, losing their fucking livelihoods every fucking year. And tens of thousands is on the low side, by the way. That's less harmful, right? Selling that kind of shit into your community is less harmful than groping a kid. That's your argument?
Yes.
I think you're being ridiculous.
Okay, you can think I'm being whatever. It doesn't matter. I think it's less egregious than child abuse.
I think
the issue here is that the child abuse thing is icky and it's inconvenient to you, so you're willing to let go of your principle to hold on to the optics one.
The point here is that there is a level where you would be okay
because you
with
protect
this
children
right
no matter what. What the fuck? Why is that not a
children all night
community
of
the children in the community
right?
selling drugs
that
into?
You're saying it's wrong, even in the case of crime, except for the crimes that I personally am very strongly against. In those cases, then it's okay.
No, because we already have these standards. You guys are acting like we don't have these standards. Counselors are obligated to report active child abuse. Pastors are obligated. Pastors are obligated to report active child abuse. They're not reported to say I saw this guy giving this other guy crack. Shut the fuck up.
Same argument applies.
There clearly is a degree.
Amazon Ring. If you see someone being attacked, harmed, or otherwise assaulted, yes, report that shit.
Can I just say so much of this conversation is irrelevant due to one fact. And that is, as much as we keep talking about, oh, you opted in and that's in there, whatever. I agree on an individual basis, that's true. You can opt out if you want to. But the fact is, we almost 99% of us, we almost all entirely opt into everything all the time. So the fact that, yes, individuals can opt out if they want to sort of ignores the fact that all of the power that comes as a result of the abilities of all these different institutions and corporations and government entities to be able to utilize this information makes the opt-in thing totally irrelevant, because we all opt in. Almost all of us opt in. And there's just the fact that, there's the occasional nerd who reads every single, piece of legalese before he clicks OK to something, and then says no, and therefore is perpetually offline.
So real quick, if I may address you directly here, I don't see how that follows. Just because most people do it, a vast majority of people do it, doesn't invalidate the action, right?
No, but I'm not talking about the rights of individuals to opt out. I'm talking about the institutional power that comes along with all of these things.
So your argument is clear.
Onesie-twosie that opts out, the power still, it makes no difference to the power of the entity that gains that ability.
No, I understand what you're saying, is that it gives the normalizing this gives the institutions involved a vast amount of power. Are you not okay with them having this power in this case?
No, it's not that I'm not okay with them having the power or okay with them having it. I'm saying what I said earlier with David Brin's argument, the transparent society, is that there's no avoiding it. The genie's out of the bottle, you're never going to be able to put it back in. What you need is transparency.
We're on the cusp of it, but we can still
can I ask you a question?
Make the home sacrosanct, folks.
When we were talking about Amazon Ring and whether it's ethical or should be legal.
But that's a very narrow slice of the real problem we're debating, which is all of the other things that are just like Amazon Ring.
I'm sorry, but ethical and legal versus just the state doing what it wants to fucking do to advance its own power in the moment. What's it gonna do? Yeah. Obviously. So,
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So, welcome back.
Is there undue influence? Are you arguing that there's undue influence, that it is necessary for people to sign this agreement because their business will fail, or they had a previous agreed upon agreement, and that in terms of their livelihood or their business?
No, I'm agnostic on that issue.
Right.
What I'm saying is that's a relevant issue. It's an irrelevant issue, right? Because the influence can't be stopped, whether it's due or undue.
So I'll skip all of the other things. It's not unconscionable. It's not undue influence. You're not doing this under duress, right? So why is it that society has chosen to normalize this, and people are lazy when they review their contracts? Where is the argument there?
Because there's a million contracts just like that, and we just don't have the bandwidth to review them all, and or opt out of society by never saying yes to any. You
could quit social media.
Plenty of people don't have social media accounts.
But social media is only one thing. Yeah. There's a million other things besides social media.
Fabian, so nice to make Prime's panel part of your day.
Aiko's talking about and he's making a really good point, right? That overall, social media is just one thing, right? But in terms of our eroding privacy, that's happening on all sectors, especially anything tech, right? But it's happening in all directions, and that even if you did exactly what you're saying, Doobie and Scott, and that you actually read the contract, every single one, right? And then you were privacy minded, and then decided to object to each individual one, then that means that you're done. You simply cannot participate in society, at least in the way that we do in our modern day. You can't be here. You can't be here talking to me right now. You can't be our friends in our Twitch audience. You can't be there. You can't be anywhere because you're always. Because our privacy has been, because it's been normalized to the point where it's everywhere. So instead of relying on these corporations, right, or looking for a market alternative that will happen to be privacy minded, right, instead of waiting for something like that to come in and then replace every single other product that isn't privacy minded, what about if we had an overall regulation? Scott's not going to agree with this. But an overall regulation, right?
I love this.
That ensured our privacy in certain areas.
I love this, PrimeCayes.
Okay.
You know why I love this?
I really want to. I want to try to figure out. Ico, I'm really curious.
PrimeCayes.
Do you think
PrimeCayes. The
Oh my
reason
god! Oh
that
my god! Oh my god! Stop!
PrimeCayes.
Please,
No, I mean, like he's
it's
addressing this, so
asinine.
I'm just gonna
It's a
answer
waste
it.
of all of our time. It's boring. Most
PrimeCayes.
definitely.
PrimeCayes.
And I have
PrimeCayes.
questions.
Wait,
for Ico, by the way.
Prime was talking
Wait,
to
let him
Scott.
ask his question. I'm curious.
Hold on.
The reason
yeah.
I love this form of argumentation is what you've essentially done is pre-packaged social contract theory as a means of saying that we all agree to state regulation and even the ways that the state is against us, but it's okay because we have some democratic measures in there. You've done the same thing with privacy in corporations, and then you've appealed saying that that's bad and you need some other force, which is the state, to protect you from those actions. And so what you've actually done is that you've made the same argument that I make, that the social contract is bullshit and that people
It's
should
bad,
be able
gang.
to
You got it.
voluntarily disassociate with those powers that be. Except in the market, you can do that, even if it's not convenient. With the state, you can't. And so I love that you made the anarchist argument for me, but you didn't realize that you were doing so.
Okay, thank you so much. Wick, please.
Okay, so Ico, I'm very curious. So I'm going to stipulate to everything you said, right? Like to all this is happening. It's very hard to opt out of it when it's so pervasive. You can't opt out of it to instill participate in modern society. All that. Okay, I may nitpick, but overall, we'll go with it, right? I guess I would ask you: do you think it's a bad thing, or would you say that the benefits that this connectivity is bringing, the benefits that we're getting from having ads that are targeted to what we want, actually, and being able to reach out and have food delivered to our home directly, and having our needs met in ways that haven't been before, and the convenience of all of this. There are plenty of pros to the society and the system that we're living in. So do you think that the violations of privacy outweigh those pros?
Yeah, I think they probably do, but that's not the larger point. The larger point is that it wouldn't matter either way because it's unavoidable. Because the complexity of the system is so great that that data is gonna be available no matter what certain individuals do, because 99% of us opt into everything all the time. So the less than 1% opting out isn't going to do anything to stop that.
So
but what you can do is make sure that there isn't a small group of people, the ones with the most power, being able to keep their shit private, right? The boardrooms not being transparent about the decisions that they make, the government not being transparent about the decisions that it makes, and all of these other powerful institutions being the only things that are able to not be accountable and nobody knows what they're doing, right?
Then if I may ask, like, do you not think that there is value in having certain exceptions to this transparency? For example, courtrooms and jury deliberations. Sure. Jury deliberations. I wouldn't want a camera in a jury deliberation room, for example. I wouldn't want a camera in a military headquarters where they're making decisions on national security issues. I wouldn't want that to be transparent entirely. Like, generally, sure. Like, I get the concept you're going for, but I think there's just so many exceptions that we would carve out for the rich and the powerful particular institutions, that I would actually be for carving out these exceptions for specific institutions, that overall I don't see it being realistic.
No, it's not an easy task, right? But I think that we've gone way overboard in the other direction in giving all of this power. We all know, everybody knows that if there are certain exceptions or rules or the ability to do things to stake your claim on rights, that the rich and the power, for instance, corporations love regulations because they have the lawyers and the manpower to be able to make sure that they cross every T and dot every I, right? It's the mom and pop businesses that always lose out in those kind of situations, right? Because they're not able to jump through all of the hoops always to get. It's the same sort of thing. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that these that they're on more of an even footing, right? And sometimes that means less regulation or simpler regulation, or being able to pare down older regulation so that when you add new ones, it doesn't just layer one on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other, right? And it's the same thing with these privacy rights. We have to think deeply about it. We have to say, yeah, of course, we can't let, we can't let Russia know what all of our strategies are in terms of helping Ukraine, for instance, and things like that. But
if I may, real quick, I just wanted to push back on something like. The idea of a social contract was brought up, and in reality, we don't actually have a social contract. That's not what we actually have. Now, hear me out here for just a few seconds here. What we actually have, rather than a social contract, is what I like to call the God contract. G-O-D. Guns, oil, drugs. It's the guns that maintain our society and also are pointed at you to make sure that you do what you're supposed to do. The oil that we need to keep all the fucking lights on and keep our fucking modern conveniences going, and the drugs, whether they be illegal, recreational, or medicinal, that we need to get through our very lives. These are the three things that the powerful and the elite dangle over you or point directly at you, and that is the actual social contract, if you will. It's not, there's no real social contract. I just always refer to it as the God contract. And
I think certainly since the Civil War, that's been the case, right? Certainly since the Civil War, that's been the case, right? Like that was settled based on who was able to exert the most force. So that's true.
The Civil War since time immemorial.
Well, but I mean, there was some question in this country before the Civil War as to what it took to sort of undo the Union, to be able to pull out of the Union. And by the way, the Confederacy was no better. They tried to force Kentucky to join, and they wanted, they sent an army up there to force them to join. So they didn't believe in states' rights either, really, when it came down to it. But I agree with you. I think one of those pegs, which is oil, we could potentially get out of because we can decentralize power and rely less on that. But I certainly agree on the guns part that the government's use of force takes things beyond just a simple social contract. And it's going to take to get out of that social contract that we're in will require violence.
DB.
We won't be let out of it without violence.
So I'm kind of curious about something that was mentioned a few times earlier. So whenever I'm making an argument against democracy, one of the points on, it's one of the main reasons I dislike democracy, is the fact that most people are stupid or uninterested, or just really incapable, either incapable or incompetent or uninterested in figuring out how the government works, how society works, which policies are beneficial, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? But and whenever I do that, you guys say, "Oh, Doobie, just being an elitist. How dare you say that about the average person?" Right? But here, you guys are saying, "Hey, people are too stupid to understand TOS. We can't expect people to read contracts that they're agreeing to, or how dare you expect the average person who's not like us, not like these high-minded Twitch intellectuals. The average person is an idiot who can't understand these big words. They're more than two syllables. How can you possibly expect them to read this? Like, why aren't you being an elitist? So that the average person, the average adult even, can't just read this fucking contract that, like Scott laid out earlier, is in plain language, very easy to read, very easy to find. Like, why aren't you guys being these fucking elitists that you guys are always accusing me of being?
Because I'm doing the same stupid thing, right? I accepted the terms of service
literally wearing
because
a crown.
You just don't
That's very
care.
elitist of you,
right?
So, hold on, but I've done this too, right? So there are times where I'm signing on to play some video game and they have like a fucking TOS thing there. I'm not gonna read that shit because I just don't care that much. If I were concerned about my privacy in that instance, I'd read it. I'm not, so I don't fucking read it. Because the reality is, not that people are like incapable reading these things. The fact is, they just don't give a fuck. They don't.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it's fine for people to just not care that Amazon is watching them jerk off. Right? It's not that big a deal.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't say anything different from that. I never said that people were too stupid to read those things. I click through those things just like everybody else does. Now, if it ever comes back and bites you in the butt, we'll all claim, "Oh, I didn't know that was in there." Like, you know, we don't want to like deal with consequences if it happens. But again, I'm not even arguing that because I think it's unavoidable. I think there's too much complexity in the system.
Corey.
I think privacy is gone.
And liberty dies with raucous applause.
I'll attempt to answer your question, Doobie, at least for myself. So I will grant you that whatever, the majority of people are stupid and, you know, whatever, essentially illiterate and can't read or understand or comprehend a basic TOS. I won't necessarily agree with it, but I will grant you that. I would say what would make it not elitist is like the belief that you can hopefully cultivate people to get to a level through access to education, which, you know, I would hope you're in favor for, of like free universal access to higher education. I see that more a contradiction on your part of like, you seem to have this doom and gloom, but like, don't empower people to, you know, get an education to get them to that level of being able to understand and comprehend a TOS, and so that they can actually.
I think.
read
Hold on. Wait 1 second. Wait. Please. Can I? So first of all, I'm much more in favor of like government programs than most people on this panel. One of those is universal education. For some education, I don't want people getting sociology. Yeah, I don't want people getting humanity. I think people should be getting marketable skills when they go to college. Right? So, yeah. So okay. Yeah. So there's no contradiction at all or hypocrisy at all. So that being said, when I said that most people are just uninterested, I think it's fine. I think it's okay for people to just not care what's in these terms of service agreements. For people to not care what the government policies are in the local community. If you're more interested in, you know, driving your truck, coming home, fucking your wife and taking care of your kids, that's totally fine. Do that. You don't need to care about the government. Leave that to people who are responsible, or who are interested in that sort of thing and want to read up on that kind of shit. And which is why I think people should need to make like an active an active choice through action, right, to demonstrate that they not only have the capability but have the desire to affect and influence their government and understand the government, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think it should be something that, you know, you're a fucking truck driver, and a couple times a year someone hassles you to go vote at some fucking polling booth on shit you don't understand. I think that's really stupid, right? I think that's like abusive.
So no, the real problem here.
We're running out of time.
Let me just make this point because
Corey, I'm sorry. Ike already had his hand up. You know, so like,
this will be fast.
When you guys are giving your closing, right? Like when you're giving your outro, so you can say the thing, right? Like that short thing.
Right, that's fine.
Just say that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, DB, you and I have argued on this very point quite a few times. And I don't remember literally all the arguments I've made against or for you, because sometimes I've been on your side. But like, I think I've made that you could call it a elitist argument, and I make it specifically when I'm talking about like low information voters, which is pretty much what you're saying, right? Yeah. And that they exist, and they make our democracy worse, and that's the part that makes me like quite sympathetic to your argument. So I'll put that out there. But I'm sure we're gonna argue about it
once again. Doobie's right about everything.
Fucking anyway, hello all. We're done with this panel, right? But the content continues, right? We will always have more content for you. We're gonna go into a walk-on panel after this, right? So stick around, but the content doesn't end. We're just gonna give an outro to all these great people, and then they're gonna take the time to get on their soapbox, right? Which is something I would never do. Anyway, let's if you are enjoying this content, hit that follow button right now. Make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live, but it's all the time and provide you a lot of different stuff here. So I think you would want to be involved. Expect your social chat for our social media. We have Twitter, where we tweet things, Discord, where all conversations happen, including the walk-on panel, which we'll have right after this, where you can be involved. Yes, you sitting at home. TikTok is where you'll find behind videos for this channel, and YouTube is where you'll find the VODs. If you've missed anything, that's where you'll find it. You'll find it on YouTube. Like, comment, and subscribe. Consider becoming a YouTube member by hitting that join button, helping us out that way. All right. So we are going to give an outro, but remember the content doesn't end. Stick around. So we'll start with Wick. Wick, please.
Yeah, so once again, thank you, first of all, for having me on this panel. It's always fun, even when it's a rough one like this one was. We get we go round and round. So you can find me at twitch.tv/Death of Certainty. All one word, no underscores, no spaces, nothing like that. I host panels on Mondays and Fridays at 6 to 8 Eastern usually. Tuesdays I have open call-in shows, and Thursdays I try to do something a little more casual and fun, whether that be one-on-one interviews or just hanging with the homies, all that. You can tomorrow I'm trying something a little different. I'm hosting a one-on-one debate at 8 o'clock Eastern between Stabby and Sprouticus here. So if you want to see them yell at each other, that's how you'll check it out. Also, I have reached out to the FIRE.org, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, and its details are still working out, but I'm going to have a representative of theirs on my show and talk about free speech, talk about the work they do in the courtroom and across campuses to protect people's rights for individual expression. So that should be fun. I'll let you know details when I get it. The only other thing I'll shout out right now is some of you have asked about it in chat. I did not lose a fight. One of my veneers came out, so I'm going to post a link to GoFundMe. So if you have $5 on you and you want to throw that at me to help me fix my teeth, that would be it would really help me out. I really appreciate it. So thank you for having me on. Once again, twitch.tv/Death Certainty. Check me out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And please, everyone, hit up that GoFundMe for our boy Wick. Wick is always around, and he's a great guy, great part of our community. When people in our community need help, we should rally around them. So let's help our man Wick. Let's go to Phil KOE. All right, big fan of this man. Phil KOE. Please give us your sweet. No, I won't make the same mistake again. Phil, you're last, okay? All right. So we're gonna go to Sprout.
Phil denied, but don't worry, folks. Just wait a little longer. Save the best for last.
Absolutely. DB, you have something to say?
I can go now, sort of at the end. That's easier.
I'll just wrap around.
Safe, Phil. Okay.
Sprouticus, please.
Yeah, so I am DSprouticus. You can find me at twitch.tv/DSprouticus, twitter.com/DSprouticus. I'm typically a wild card when it comes to panels nowadays. You never know where exactly I'm going to lie, so it's kind of fun with people not knowing what I'm going to say before I say it. Other than that, guys, come follow me at Twitch and Twitter, and let's have some fun.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go Aiko next. Aiko, please. Your first time here on a closed panel. How did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So I'm still getting used to the number of people on a panel, meaning that the opportunities to talk can get sparse at times. But I all in all, I think I got to say at least 80% of what I wanted to say, which I feel like is a pretty good number. But the one thing I did want to say was that I think part of the confusion that we had with Doobie was when I said something like, the complexity is too great. And what I meant by that, I didn't mean that like TOS is too complex for the average person to read or something like that, or that you needed a higher level of education. I don't think any level of education prepares us for this level of complexity. What I mean is we don't have the bandwidth to deal with all of the things that we're supposedly agreeing to when we're online or when we're doing virtually anything these days. That's really the only point I was making with that, is that nobody can do it. Einstein couldn't do it. And that was it.
Thank you so much. All right. Now, LSP has appeared as if from the ether once again. LSP, your outro.
You love me and you know it, Prime. I actually wrote my outro as just a response to Doobie because I think Doobie presented like a really compelling point, and I want to I was actually like compelling enough that I had to like think about it. So can I just read this one paragraph thing?
Sure, go ahead.
Fucking nerd.
Yeah, fuck you. I want us to be super wary of the power that both government and corporations have over your privacy rights. And I want to restrict that as much as possible. I'm sorry, as much as reasonable. Doobie presents what is perhaps the most challenging question in this regard, whether or not a meth lab would be reported, and I had to think about it. I realized I was being selective with which crimes I would allow to be reported, but didn't seem to have a litmus test for how I select for those crimes. That caused a bit of crisis in that I had to determine what constitutes as a public harm versus a public good. And it's plainly obvious that drugs are a public harm. I'm inclined then to retreat to Phil's total privacy versus Doobie's total control. I'm thinking of abortion pills being consumed in a state where that has been banned. I'm sorry, where that access to those pills have been banned. I'm building the most vulnerable case I can to determine how committed I am to violating this right. What comes down to a public harm is entirely subjective, so I'd rather side with caution and simply declare a more total right to privacy, as Phil, the king of extreme, does. I don't want a rape victim going to prison for murder because she took a fucking pill. If that means living in a world where drug labs go unreported by knowing parties, or that child molesters are more likely to get away with their crimes, I'd rather take the side which protects people's rights the most, rather than the one which reduces the most harm instead. In the same way, a person who is against gun control must necessarily own that they're going to live in a world with more gun violence. I will protect that right, even if it means that drug labs and rapists can get away with their crimes. There, that's the most holistic response I can give to your point, Doobie.
It was. You should have kept that to yourself. Honestly, that was really bad.
You know, I just paid you a fucking compliment, you fucking asshole. Suck my dick.
Take the compliment.
God,
Well,
like a teenage girl, man.
Our Dark Lord and Savior, Doobie, right? Who's always kind to his rhetorical opponents, right?
His mom's bad.
Always encouraging.
He smells bad.
Okay, go ahead, Doobie, please.
I think LSP, who has a degree in some shit, I think.
That's the last time I paid you a compliment, motherfucker.
So in like a conceivably intelligent person, right? If that was his response to what I said, hey, I'm uncomfortable with turning over meth labs, so let's just let the kids be molested and the rapists get away. Like, I guess you should just agree with me. Don't be like LSP. Don't embarrass yourself.
Or a woman
agree with me. Agree with everything I say.
Pill. Yeah, but no, let's just single into the
murdering a baby. Yes, if that's what their perspective is, she's going to prison for murder. Yes, it doesn't matter if you ideologically agree with it. That's the law. Okay, so like advocate to change the law.
Or being Jewish or homosexual.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know what Jews have to do with any of this, but sure.
This is
examples of where states violate the rights of people.
LSP, this is his outro.
So
he's retarded.
I'm Doobie. The reason I'm this intelligent, right, is because I help run the best politics server on the Discord platform, discord.gg/politics, the best and biggest politics server there is. We have a couple very interesting AMAs coming up. We've got Tony McFadden, who's an anti-abortion activist, goes around the country, has for decades, advocating for Black women to avoid the Black baby extermination chambers that are abortion clinics. She's really cool. We have a detransitioner. Richie. I forget her name. Richie. Yeah.
Yeah. Richie.
That's this.
He calls himself Tulabar online.
Yes, that is also this weekend. That's gonna be really fucking interesting, I think. And on the 30th, we have Alex Stein, who has been in the news recently a fucking ton because AOC canceled him for calling her a big Buddha Latina. That should be a very strange and interesting AMA. That'll be on the 30th. So that's where you'll find me. That's how you'll avoid the LSP trap of getting a degree but still being a dumbass. Just agree with Doobie. Go to my server, argue with people. You have a good time.
I think you only do this if you got a tiny dick.
That's really racist.
Doobie in chat for the link to his Discord politics server, right? So shout out to my man Doobie. The anti-abortion activist, that sounds really interesting. I think I might want to stop by for that one. That might be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll remind you. That should be really an interesting one.
Please, thank you. Okay, next we'll go to our friend Scott.
Yeah, so there was thing that one closing argument that I wanted to make, that just to wrap it up, trying quickly, the state, the government, is the insurer of your contracts. That is who ensures that your contracts are enforced, and that is who ensures that the rules of your contracts are met. That is who, takes the supposed common law perspective of, unconscionable contracts and duress and illegality and undue influence. The problem here is that the state regularly defrauds you. It is a fraudulent organization that lies to you, that steals from you, that commits aggression upon you, that violates your rights under natural law, and even the rights that they themselves created under the Constitution. The issue of the Ring Amazon contract, the TOS is not the problem. And the amount of contracts that we sign and our inability to understand all of the contracts is not a problem. The problem is that we do not have a market to determine who insures our contracts. We're not able to actually find out who we can trust to enforce and protect our rights. Instead, we're all left with the same government. That government that commits aggression upon you, and that government that defrauds you, and that government that supposedly a social contract is supposed to protect you, despite you having different values than other voters. And so together you vote and come to some sort of compromise, except this compromise often leads to your values not being represented and your contracts not being insured fairly based off of the values that you want. That is the real issue here. We are looking at Amazon and the corporate interests when really what we should be looking at is the monopoly on the insurance of these contracts from an agency that defrauds you and commits aggression and violence against you regularly, and whom you battle for the rights of your values in the ballot box. I am Scott from Fabian Liberty. We're an anarcho-capitalist duo stream. We do politics, we do interviews, we do philosophy and things like that. Tomorrow we'll be interviewing John Cochran, of no relation to Johnny Cochran, who is running for an LP seat in Alabama, talking about how to speak to like some of the ultra right and MAGA crowd and paleo lib strategy. And then Wednesday, the 27th, we will be talking to Yaron Brook, who is perhaps one of the most famous objectivists in the world, second maybe only to Rand herself, obviously, who's not here, and Leonard Peikoff, talking about the objectivism, talking about what it means, how he became one, the philosophy of it. What is existence is identity? What is the axiom of consciousness? What are the clashes between that and natural law, Rothbardian philosophy? And so if you're into that kind of heady philosophical discussion with some of the one of the best in the world, you should come check us out. Thank you so much. You'll probably find me here again. And sorry for bowing out and making some tea and insulting the intelligence of some of the panelists. I should have kept my mouth shut, though I stand by what I say.
Okay. Thank you so much, Scott. All right, next, our friend Corey.
Yes. So what I will say is, well, kudos to you, Prime, in terms of, this might have been a frustrating panel for some. I can only speak for I was highly entertained by this panel during many moments. And also to briefly respond to what LSP sort of brought up in their closing statement, and to Doobie's point, so if you are sort of in favor of upholding privacy at all costs, and you would want to stop sort of Facebook scanning and Google scanning, searching for images or flagging images of child sexual abuse, I don't think you really know the extent of the problem and how horrific it is. There's a huge toll or price that you are paying in human children and lives if you're just going to uphold privacy at all costs. And I would encourage you, as harrowing as it would be, do a deep dive on that. There's a great New York Times piece by Gabriel Dance sort of covering that. And so you can solve that issue in terms of what you're concerned about. That's why we make mandatory reporting of child sexual abuse imagery mandatory. And you can just do it something as simple to cover Doobie's point. You can make mandatory reporting of certain illicit drugs mandatory, and you don't have that issue of the things that you brought up. And so I'm Corey Campbell. Super grateful to be here with everyone on the panel. Scott, always a pleasure. Doobie, always a pleasure. LSP, nice to meet you. I, Cal Rich, pleasure to meet you. Sprouticus, KOE, and Wick, always a pleasure to you both. I'm Corey Campbell. I'm a biochemist. You can find me on Twitch, Corey Campbell84, and on Twitter and Instagram, literally, it's Corey Campbell. Thank you so much.
Okay, and our most anticipated, my man, Phil KOE, please take it away.
Folks, Thank you for being here on the PrimeCayes panel to enjoy this amazing discussion, this amazing get together, this amazing clash of ideas. And as I'm known to say around here, all that being said, thank you for joining us here, folks. I am the devilishly handsome outlaw himself, your king of extreme, Phil KOE, the man of the hour, the man with the power, the man that makes the other podcast cower, the prince and potentate of the political parlance, the lord of the Scottish Highlands, the conqueror of Fabian liberty, and many, many, many other titles, folks. You can find me at KOE Nation on YouTube, KOE Nation on Twitch, KOE Nation on TikTok. Be sure to head on over to KOE Nation on YouTube because, folks, we are wrapping up the 32 Rye tournament. It has been a tournament a year in the making, and it's going to be wrapping up here real soon. And then right after that, we are getting right in to the Sweet 16 bourbon tournament to find out what is the best bourbon on God's green earth. And to find out what that is, you got to be at KOE Nation on YouTube. It's the right place to be for you and for me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. Every last one of you, raise a glass to yourselves of your glass, your cup, your chalice, your tankard, your stein, your vessel of any kind. God bless every last one of you. I hope every last one of you people makes it back to PrimeCayes. Happy, healthy, much the wiser. Till we meet again, folks. God bless. Prime, take it away, sir.
Oh, man. Number one. You
And
just
cap
can't beat it.
porcelain.
All right. You really can't beat this guy. I'll never get tired of him. All right. Thanks all for that. We are going to continue on to our open walk on panel. Anyone here can join us, but if not, that's okay. Thanks for taking your time, your energy, your knowledge, and your passion, my community. I know they appreciate it just as much as I do. Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you so much.